Hey everyone, welcome back. So I've been working on a crime book here with On the Case 2023, which is hosted by 4am Junk Journals here on YouTube. And we just solved the case. The Sassy Turtle Plans solved the case recently, and we get to move on to a new book now. So I wanted to show you my book. She's chunky, and she is actually made out of a macaroni and cheese box. So I'm going to show you everything here. So if you're new here, thank you for stopping by, and if you're returning, welcome back. So as I stated, this is a macaroni and cheese box. It was one of those big boxes like this that you get your macaroni and cheese cups in from like Sam's Club or Walmart. So it was one of these, and what I did was I cut it down to the size that I wanted, and then I covered it with some paper, and I did a hidden spine, and then I distressed the spine to make it look like it was really old and worn leather. This is the back of the book. So I got some cool stuff on the back. I did use some paper on the inside as well. I have some pockets, and let me make sure you can see this. Not quite. Let me zoom you out just a little bit so you can see everything. Okay, here we go. So I have like some papers for notes in here that I was taking, that I wanted to add. And then what I did was I used some grommets, and I put some grommets in, and then let me take these out so you can see. So there's 4 sets of expander string. That's what I call it. It's like an elastic. Don't need this one because I made one extra just in case I needed it, but I didn't need it. So I sewed my signatures. I didn't do a 3-stitch, but I actually sewed them down the spine here. As you can see, this has been well loved and beaten up. So this is what it looks like. This is the back page. There's a pocket back here as well, as you can see. There you go. That's a pocket there. So we have these to hold it, and I just kind of tied them in there at the top. I looped them through, like to go through each one. I wouldn't suggest doing that. I would just do each one individually, and then you would get more, a stronger grip on them. So, but this was my first time making something out of a box. So I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to show you guys what I did. So this is book 1. So we have our case numbers, our first page. I have a pocket here in case I needed it. So this is the case of Angelica Worthington. I have a case file here. There was purple paint splattered everywhere, so I did that to signify the purple paint. The story's in like the 90s, but I decided to go more vintage styled. That's the nice thing about these. You can do whatever you want. And then I have some notes here about, you know, when she was found. She was strangled. She's found on her right side. This is Letitia Flores, who was the maid. And I had like her interview here, and I have some notes here that I had put in here. So we have that. And then this is her son, Albert Worthington, who is dating Letitia. And I have his information here and some notes. And at first I thought he was a suspect, but he's not. This is Sebastian Worthington. This was the husband to Mrs. Worthington. He's not a good guy. These are his notes in here that I have. Those are his interviews. And then we have Lavender, who's also known now as April Wallace. She was the lover to Sebastian Worthington, but also we found later on that she's also the daughter of the cook. So I have this information here. She was not the missing twin that we thought she was originally. So this was my representation of the house, and the house was worth $200 million. So I put that in there so that we knew, like, that was one of the motives, was the money and the house. This was my representation of the last will and testament. I just printed it up online, and I used some ink after I scrunched it up real good. I just went over it with some ink to give it that distressed look. And if you want to look like this, if you just take it and you run, like you take this and you just run it like this across it, it'll get nice and dark like that. So don't be afraid to crinkle your papers. So I did that. Get that back in there. And then I have his note here. And then why was Nash in the will? Because we didn't know who Nash was at the time. And this is Philip Worthington. He was the executor of the estate, and he was also an attorney. And he's 31 years old. He is also the son of Mrs. Worthington. And then Layla, who was one of the missing twins. We found who Layla is. Layla is actually Marnie. And we'll get to Marnie in just a moment. But this is when she was missing. Anne knew Nash was one of the twins from the affair. Nash found out after the diary was discovered. And Paul is the only verified person that was last to see Angelica Worthington at the time. This was my interpretation of a journal. So this is my interpretation of the twins, and that she had been keeping track of them. They were born September 3rd, 1998. They were given up for adoption. These were her journal entries that she had, and this is from My Porch Prints. And I just went ahead and did like some little journal entries in here. Super cute. And then tuck that back in there. And then that tucks like that. And then I just added this in here. This is just like a little flip out that I used some of the papers like to write notes and stuff on. So I did that. And we have Paul Holmes, who was married to Anne Holmes, but was also the lover of Mrs. Worthington. There's a lot there. And who we thought was the biological father to Nash Holmes, but was not the biological father. So this is Nash over here. And this is Paul's interviews. And then Nash is actually one of the twins that we were looking for. So he's actually Christopher. Olivia Holmes is Paul and Anne's daughter. I only have a picture of her when she was younger. She's an older, she was in her 20s, but we never talked to her, so I only had a photo of her when she was younger. Anne Holmes, this is her, my representation of her and her notes. This is Mr. Worthington was separated from Mrs. Worthington for a year. After Angelica's affair with Paul Holmes, Sebastian moved to Paris for the year, but he cheated on her first. There's a lot there to unpack. Philip and Marnie have been married for 7 years. Paul was born 6 months after the marriage. Marnie was 17 at the time. This is Mrs. Worthington and her sister, who is deceased, and Greta's parents died 6 years ago in a car accident, and her mom was Angelica's sister. So I did that for that representation of that. This is just some ephemera here that I put down. This is the autopsy report. I distressed it, put some coffee stains all over it to make it look like it had coffee spilled on it. And then I have some information here. So like there was an injection found under the right arm. The toxicology report was pending at the time. Arthur and Philip weren't Sebastian's sons. According to Sebastian, he can't have children. DNA tests being performed. We found out later that Sebastian's a liar. He can't have a kid. Letitia said Arthur left around 1 p.m. The murder happened between 10 and 11. So I just wrote down like all the information. This is Greta, the niece. This is Marnie. This is Philip's wife and the mother of Pearl, who we found out later is the other missing twin. And that's Christopher's twin, Layla, the missing Layla. Pearl is the daughter of Philip and Marnie. This is Charles Warner. He was the butler and also the lover of Mrs. Worthington. We found out later that he was also in a relationship with Estelle the cook and fathered Lavender and Jackson Saw, who you'll meet here in just a moment. This was his supposed last will and testament that was legit, but it was not. We found more information at the bank. This is the Jasper Bank and Trust, and that's the bank manager. We have pearl poison with strychnine powder. Mrs. Worthington had a paralytic in her system, so she was paralyzed. Philip is an attorney for Worthington and Chaz's partner. He is not disbarred. Charges against him were dropped because he had a case against him. His alibi was solid because he was in jail. Most recent will produced by Charles that leaves everything to Pearl is the correct will, is what we were told. Angelica gave Charles the will because she couldn't trust anybody else. We found out that was a lie. We found out that the safe had a journal inside of it, some jewelry, a will, a few stacks of money, according to Albert. This is Layla and Christopher when they were babies. This is Jackson Shaw, who we found out is Charles Warner and Estelle's son. But I put like some stuff in here because he was supposed to be the private investigator. So I had like little pictures here that he had, some notes, and then this is his contract with Mrs. Worthington. And we found out that he is a con man and just no good. So we have that here. And he was definitely one of my suspects. Is Marnie or Lavender one of the twins? Marnie's parents died in a boating accident a few years back, is what she was told. She grew up in foster care system and found out that her mom and dad are very much alive. Lavender was left in the foster care system according to what we've been told. She didn't know who her parents were, but she did know who her parents are. Her parents are Estelle and Charles, the butler and the cook. This was the toxicology report that came back. Just kind of ripped the edges some and distressed them. And I have them here in his belly band. Then we had DNA results. So these were the DNA results that said who fathered who. So Nash, the DNA proved that he is one of the twins. The father is not Paul Holmes. It was Charles Warner. Albert was the son of Paul Holmes, not Sebastian Worthington. Philip was not Sebastian's and was Charles's son. And Greta was in fact the niece of Angelica. Philip lived across town in a condo. It took 2 days for them to arrive at the state. We found out he was in jail, that's why. Charles is suspected he's the father to all 4 kids, but Albert's paternity shocked him. And this is actually our family tree, which needs updated because Charles also has kids with Estelle, and yeah, it's just a whole mess. And then we've got Stacia Shaw. Oh, wait. Oh, Dr. Hayes said Pearl recovered. And this was the medical examiner's report that I had tucked in here. Stacia Shaw, who disappeared. She vanished. We don't know where she went. This was the security company report of who was there at what times. And it says Pearl, then Paul, Charles, Lavender, Jackson, and Letitia. And Letitia's the one that found the body. So got that. We have evidence here. Charles, the butler, Estelle, the cook, have 2 children. And I put the prenup agreement here between Mr. Worthington and Mrs. Worthington. Sebastian Worthington went to jail. He was incarcerated for having an inappropriate relationship with Letitia when she was younger. And this is our subpoena that I did. Just did a little subpoena saying that he was subpoenaed and then he was arrested. And this is my interpretation of him being arrested. And he's incarcerated for his inappropriate relationship. So that's the first book. This is my baby book that I made. because it said that Mrs. Worthington was keeping track of Christopher and Layla, and, you know, up to a certain point. So I did the little baby book and just used some random photos to make a baby book. Nothing major, just a couple little photos here and there. So, and that's it. And then my next signature has a folio on top. And this is my folio that I created. And it flips out. And there's like notes and stuff here. Goes under here. And I just attach it to the front of the cover. And then this is my representation of who's who type thing. And then I had a small timeline here. I had a list of everybody's build, their shoe size, how tall they were. This is my alibis and lies. Sebastian and Lavender were at a cabin. Greta and Nash were at a couples retreat. Albert and Letitia had a picnic with smoked salmon and wine. Letitia went back to work, and Albert went sailing with his friends. Paul Holmes and attorney Chase Hanley, they were together at the time the body was found. Marnie went to the beach, and she was there from 10:15 to 3:15 while Pearl was in school. And this is our weather report to show what the weather was. Lies, Dark Secrets. This is to explain about Maxwell, who is Letitia and Sebastian's child, and he is 10 years old. And this is his aunt, who takes care of him in France. And this is her interview. Then we have Carter Wellmere and Ann Holmes. Carter is the son of the agent. And then we have some notes here. And this is Worthington, also known as Layla. She ruined my life. Don't call her my mom. Jackson's shop. He doesn't have a license. Supposedly his wife showed up at the estate, but it wasn't his wife. And then I had some notes here. He was hired to track down the twins. He said he found the boy in 2 days. The girl was more difficult. He actually was in witness protection, we found out. So that's his interview here. Nash, aka Christopher, he didn't like Angelica because she told him he wasn't allowed to date Greta, but we found out because they're family. She knew that they were related and didn't want them dating. Estelle, she was killed. She was stabbed 7 times in Athens, Greece, so she's deceased. Her kids are Jackson and Lavender, and she had an apartment across town. We knew she had a daughter, and she refused to talk to law enforcement. She was killed in Greece, where Lavender also was. Lavender flew to Greece. She went under an assumed name of April. Letitia cleans the attic and Pearl's playroom, and the poison was found in the attic, but Letitia had nothing to do with it. We believe that Charles actually poisoned her. Purple paint not found on Marnie or Ann's shoes. This was the injection of the phenobarbital, and I put some pills there. This was the reservation that she had at the restaurant. 4 sets of fingerprints found on the safe, the unknown fingerprints. Some notes that I had for, to find out about, that asked the detectives. This was U.S. Marshals that came to take over for Jackson Shaw. Because, once again, he was in Witsack. And then we have Charles and Estelle. They were in love and had the 2 kids together, and it was a secret relationship that we didn't know about. Who did it? Murder. And then I put this here, and inside is my notes about the case. So basically what happened is they found out, Charles found out that Mrs. W figured out that Jackson was in WITSEC and threatened to expose him because he was trying to extort her for more money and still pretending to be a private investigator, but she found out that was a lie from Paul, and then they injected her with the poison, and then Lavender finished her off and choked her. So we have that information here. And then I have more DNA. These are some DNA reports for like Greta, Nash and Greta, Philip Worthington, Albert Worthington, Angelica and Greta, Angelica and Nash. Nash's information, this is his DNA test report. And then this is my conclusion: extortion, love, poison, conclusion, murder, affair, secret, planned, kill. Just have some investigation documents listed here, and I just use these to represent them in jail. That is Lavender and Charles in jail because they killed Angelica Worthington. So that's my interpretation of that. This was the wanted because Lavender couldn't be found. She was in Greece and the Greece authorities weren't cooperating. But once they found out that she murdered someone, they brought her back to the United States. So I have this to represent them in jail. And then this is Greece, where Estelle's body was found, and Lavender, aka April Wallace, was found and brought back for justice. And then this is murder clues exhausted. This is the case of missing Mrs. Worthington. The murder is solved. And Sassy Turtle Plan celebrates victory in solving the case. 2 suspects arrested and charged with the murder of Angelica Worthington. That's a lot. This is my book. So this was my old book. So this is all done and don't need it anymore. So we're going to put this in here. And I just go down the middle. As long as I find it. There it is. So I'm just going to put this here. Just slide it in. And then same thing with the baby book. And we're going to slide that in. Nice thing about these is I was able to take them in and out to work on them, which made it easier to work with them. But it is a lot. So that was my first case book. She is mighty thick. She's beautiful. I love her. So let me show you what I'm going to do now. So we have a new case starting. And our new case is supposed to start today. And this is my new book. This one is actually made out of a book. And I have some grommets here. I did use the elastic band still. And I have like a little notebook here that I made. I have a little folio that I started that I need to put together. And then I have these in here. So I have 3 of them, 3 signatures. So these are my signatures. And I have coffee dyed paper that I made in here. So I still have to finish putting it together. I haven't finished that yet. So that is my book. And I have some other pieces, but I will be starting on this today. As you can see, I did put a couple things. So I have like my case number, my identification and crime study, and then I have interviews. So this is my new book. So follow me to keep track of what I will be doing. And hopefully I'll be able to show you guys as I go. That's the goal. So thank you for stopping by, and I will see you guys again next time. Bye.